Campeones y Pretemporada. A ver.
So buckle up as I dive into some of the champions we have in development. So before we get into the new champions coming up this year, let's take a quick look back at the champions we've released in 2022 so far. First we had the speedy ADC Zeri, then the girl boss Renata Glass. After that, the Void Empress herself, Belva. And then most recently, the joyful Neela. And just around the corner, we have the Udyr VGU, complete with a dad bod worthy of the Freljordian gods. Udyr's development has been a long journey, especially since he's been the first VGU that we've done that's had an ultimate skin.
Muy bueno, boludo. Muy bueno.
We've also been shipping a lot of mid-scope updates to various champions, including Janna, Ahri, Swain, Talia, Olaf, and recently, Sivir. Because we slowed down the release of new champions, we've had a bit more time to ship smaller updates to champions on the roster that have fallen behind the pack.
Eso está bien.
Instead, we want to freshen up the champions that aren't living up to the expectations of the players who love them. We try to strengthen their fantasy even more, rather than reinvent it. So for Swain, we pushed his fantasy of an unkillable frontline mage to the max. And for Ahri, we focused on her fantasy of a mobile mage, rather than the assassin she had become. Given all of this, we want to keep pursuing mid-scope updates, including Nico and Syndra.
Mira.
So later this year, we have a new top lane tank hailing from Shurima, who I briefly mentioned in the last champion roadmap. This new champion will introduce a part of Shurima that we haven't explored yet, the city of Nezuma. He actually fought one of the largest monsters the desert has ever known, creating his unique Entofos out of its rare regenerating hide. Entofos are huge, blunt weapons that can be used defensively. So after Kasanti, we will be releasing the highly anticipated Aurelion Soul CGU. To remind everybody, a CGU, or Comprehensive Gameplay Update, is a new type of update we are testing out on Aurelion Soul. So the goal is to completely reimagine Asol's gameplay without changing his visuals or narrative at all. One of the goals was to enhance his dragon theme. And what do dragons do? Well, they breathe fire, of course. Asol's new Q allows him to breathe fire for as long as he has mana. But let's not forget the other thing dragons do, fly. His new W allows him to take to the skies, but this time, he doesn't have to walk in a straight line for like ever. He can now fly with the push of a button.
¿Qué hicieron?
And if there's one thing more iconic than either flying or breathing fire, it's flying while breathing fire, which you can do by combining his Q and W. We did it. So yeah, long story short, we're making a new Darken Assassin. So this one was actually entrapped in a dagger, which is now, and here's what it looks like. Ooh, so edgy, so dark. And as to who or what got a hold of these daggers, well, you'll just have to wait and find out. Another thing a lot of people have been asking to see progress on is the Ahri update. And here's a sneak peek of her updated VFX.
Se ve zarpado. Tenés eso y después tenés esto, amigo. Mismo juego. Sí. Digo, está bien con Ahri, ¿no? Vende muchas skins Ahri, pero... ¿Ñamumu? Shyvana es un asco, sí, amigo. Podría ser mucho más fachero el modelo del personaje.
I'm happy to say we have right now, in very early development, a new male enchanter from Ixtal. We'll show a very different side to Ixtal, far from the lavish palaces Kiana grew up in. So take a look at this art teaser that the team working on him put together. Let's hear from
Ixtal, la zona de Runeterra, o sea, es el mundo del LoL, en donde hacen petes. Ahí la augura tu vieja.
A few patches ago, we launched the Champion Durability Update. Our goal was to increase the durability and reduce the damage and healing of every champion in League. We've been closely monitoring the results, and after some targeted adjustments, we're really happy with where the update landed. A lot of you have mentioned how much you like the update, and that it feels good to have fights last longer with more chances for skill expression, and we're glad that it helped make League feel fresher. That said, we don't have plans to make changes of this size outside of preseason in the future, unless it's really necessary. Speaking of which, let's talk about our plans for preseason.
A ver, amigo, vos entendés, ¿no? Que el año que viene se viene la Season 13. Y voy a hacer el chiste todo el año, amigo.
Similar to last year,
Todo el año, amigo, no vas a zafar.
we're making more targeted changes to various systems.
Imagínate cuando lleguemos al parche 13.13. ¿Qué pasa? Se rompe la Matrix, amigo.
So for this preseason, we're updating systems including communication and vision, making the jungle more exciting and accessible, and bringing back a familiar foe. Our communication system is showing its age, especially in comparison to some of our other games. To that, we're expanding our in-game ping system to allow for better communication with your team. The current system only lets you share very basic communications. And while we appreciate your ingenuity with the limited pings you have, we wanted to give you more opportunity for clearer communication. The updated pings will include everything you already know and love, plus expanded vision options and a call.
Amigo, esos nuevos pings son God. Engage. O sea, tirate. Ayúdame. Ese ya está, la banderita.
You already know and love.
Harass. Ese puede llegar a malinterpretarse. Porque el harass es tipo pegale, dale, pero tampoco te mandes a lo tonto, ¿me entendés? Como sonealo. Pokeá, claro, eso. Bueno, el signito de pregunta clásico. Frisear líneas es espectacular porque literal le pusieron un no toques los minions. O sea, ese va a ser excelente usado en AD Carries para los supports, pero igual los supports van a seguir tocando la wave y eso, según Riot, no es reportable, así que bueno. Me gusta igual el HUD, amigo, está piola.
And a call to engage.
El de peligro, ese está bien. Pushear. Claro, tenés push y tenés... Está piola, amigo.
In addition to the changes to communication, we're making some small improvements to the vision system, as it's a bit outdated. It's not super clear that you can swap vision trinkets, and it's definitely not clear how you can best utilize them. To that, we're exploring ways to make vision trinkets more intuitive. You'll be able to see how many wards you have on the map, and preview where they'll go when placing them in walls. Another focus this year is the jungle. We know it's often a highly stressful role where you need heaps of knowledge to be baseline proficient. There's a lot riding on junglers, as they're often the backbone of the team's strategy, while sometimes getting unjustly flamed. So we're looking to make some changes to make jungling more intuitive and to help alleviate some of its more painful parts.
Que junglear sea más fácil.
Our first change is improving buff sharing. Donating buffs to your laners is an important part of being a jungler, but it feels bad to lose the gold, experience, and bonuses they provide.
Claro.
We're exploring a bunch of things to make this more painless to junglers, like buffs leaving behind a little friend that also has a buff. We're also looking at ways of improving jungle camp patience rules. The goal of this change is to make it so you don't get overly punished by accidentally pulling camps too far. You shouldn't have to know exactly what pixel to stand on to do red buff and raptors at the same time without one resetting. So we're making changes that will make it less punishing when that happens. We'll still keep unique, optimal clears for different champions, like Kayn starting raptors and Shaco doing whatever it is he does. All this said, we're not trying to make mastering jungle easier, but we do want to make it easier to start jungling.
Igual no aclaró nada, o sea, tipo va a decir que si se te resetea el camp no te va a doler tanto. Eso quiere decir que el campamento no se va a resetear tan fácil, que va a tener menos vida. ¿Qué significa eso? No, lo de la dragona Quintec ni lo menciono porque evidentemente fue, o sea, era un dragón que era demasiado fuerte, hermano. O sea, no tenía sentido lo bueno que estaba el bufo que daba. Estúpido derroto.
Preseason change we want to talk about today is the long-awaited return of everyone's favorite Drake. While we're bringing Chemtech Drake back from the dead, she won't bring you back from the dead anymore. Instead, the new and improved Chemtech Soul grants more damage and damage reduction when you're low health. And when the Chemtech Drake takes over the rift, the plants on the map mutate and become empowered.
Mira.
For example, Scry's Bloom will grant movement speed when moving towards revealed enemies, and Blast Cone will take you further than ever before.
Mira vos.
From blue buff to mid lane.
Piola eso.
We still have other plans for preseason.
Me gusta porque no revienta la grieta como la otra vuelta que era lo del sigilo. Que eso también estaba piola, pero era muy extraño. Me gusta el cono explosivo que te llega más lejos.
Like from blue buff to mid lane.
Está piola.
We still have other plans for preseason, including the usual updates and tweaks to items and runes.
O sea, reducción de daño y más daño cuando tenés menos vida. No es tan mal. Hay campeones que, sobre todo split pushers, solo laners, que pueden abusar mucho de eso.
And we'll share more information about our plans for these and everything we discussed today as we get close to preseason. That's all I have today.
Thanks, Roxanne. So I'm hearing that there is one last thing we forgot to show you all. You all remember the skin line you voted for at the beginning of the year, right? I think it was the Gothic skin line revamp. And time for all of you to see some sweet concept art for the new Fright Night skins.
Igual el RP está muy caro, amigo. No voy a comprar nada. Esta está en Asia, amigo. Esta ya la había visto. En Asia.